This is Brent with Lykins Motorsports, and this is JJ. I thought I was going to dyno him for the last time yesterday before I did a piston and rod swap, but I forgot that I did have a cam that I had ground for him a couple months back, and I was just sitting thinking about how it would be nice to try that cam before I tear him down for good. So I think I'm going to do a cam swap, and I'll go ahead and start taking the front end off, water pump, balancer spacer, timing cover, that sort of thing, and we'll see how we go. So let's get started. Alright, so we got the balancer bolt out and the crank pulley off, and now we're going to pull the water pump. I know a lot of guys use zip wrenches, but I'm kind of old-fashioned, and I like using hand tools. Just a preference. Usually you can get all 4 bolts out, and water pump will still be stuck there. You got to give it a little bit of a push. Alright, next we're going to get our harmonic balancer off with a puller. Power bond balancers are good about not having an extreme press fit, so you really don't have to wrench on them real hard. Voila. And balancer spacer comes off after that. Alright, now we're going to take the timing cover off. It's a series of 3/8 and 5/16 bolts. And then we have 4 bolts in the oil pan that hold the oil pan to the timing cover. Get a wrench for that other one. Alright, so if you can see, the timing cover come off really easily. The gasket didn't tear or anything. It's because I used that clear silicone. I think it helps to break it off easily. And the oil pan gasket didn't tear either, so we're in extra good shape right now. Okay, so the next step is we're going to pull We're gonna go ahead and pull our valve covers and rocker arms off. And I went ahead and put the balancer bolt back in the crank so I can rotate the engine over. So let's get that done. All right, so we got the distributor out and we got the valve covers off, and I usually take this time to just take a look in the cylinder head drains. The oil filter has been really clean every single time I brought it home, so I didn't expect to see anything, but whatever's laying in right here and in the drains is a telltale sign of how the engine is doing. This thing is just perfectly clean. JJ has been really good to me. It does whatever I ask it to do and doesn't really complain about it at all. But these are the T&D rockers, and we're going to get those off next. All right, rockers are off, push rods are out. I took the spark plugs out, and when you get to that point, you can use just a rotational torque style torque wrench like you would use to set up drag on a pinion gear to check rotational, what it takes to turn over the engine, basically the short block at this point. And we were at 90 inch-pounds, so that's about 8, what is that, about, well, a little under 8 pound-feet of torque. So this engine has 1 millimeter rings in it, and everything just, machine work is really, really good on it, and it just doesn't take that much to spin it over. All right, so we're going to pull the tunnel ram off now and leave the intake adapter on, and that will allow me access to the lifters. All right, so if you're ever doing this on your own, I would recommend gluing your Cleveland gaskets to the adapter and then just coating everything else with white lithium grease. I got all the bolts out of the tunnel ram and just lifted up on it, and it came right off, and there are no gasket issues whatsoever. So now we're going to pop this cover off, and that'll give me access to my lifters. All right, so there's our lifters, and everything looks nice and clean. All I have to do now is roll the engine over to where we have both dots pointing at each other and break the cam bolt loose, and not much longer until the cam comes out. All right, so timing set is off, and man, everything just looks really good. There's no wear on the thrust plate at all. Everything just looks really good. This is the benefit of the intake adapter. The cam is still in there, but the lifters normally are right there, and I can just hold them up and slide that cam out, which I'm a thrust plate away from getting the cam out. So let's get that thrust plate off. All right, so we're getting ready to put our new cam in, and I won't say much about the specs. It's almost exactly the same specs as the last cam, but it has a little bit less overlap, which I have a feeling that it will respond to that. In the past, when I have had large cams, and I've picked some guys up quite a bit on horsepower and ET both by going to a smaller cam. So got my fingers crossed on this one, and we're gonna lube her up. First I'm gonna wash it and then lube her up, and we'll slide this thing in. All right, so our new cam is in, and I'm gonna put some Loctite on our thrust plate bolts and get those torqued. All right, for my own OCD, I'm gonna torque these on the camera. These torque at 55 pound-feet. One. Two. Okay, I've got timing set on. That bolt is not torqued yet, but I'm gonna go ahead and pop my lifters back down. Come on, honey. Bingo. Now I'm gonna try to degree it with the heads on. Fun times. All right, so this is what I got rigged up. I've got a 7/16 push rod. My thought is the bigger the push rod, the more it'll stay centered in the slot there in the intake adapter. I've got a magnetic base, a dial indicator, and my tip is sitting on the hole in the end of the push rod. So I'm gonna set up my tripod on this side, and we'll see if we can get an accurate reading. All right, so we're gonna roll through and see. Zero this again and see where we come up on. There's 200, 300, 389.5. Load lift on the intake side, we were supposed to be at 390. I'm calling that good. So that's our pinnacle of our intake load. We're gonna zero there. And we'll go back 100 thousandths. And then I'm gonna go forward to here to 50. And look at our degree wheel. It's pointing at 69.5. We're gonna go to 0. And then back to 50. And we are at 152.5. So 69.5 plus 152.5 divided by 2 is 111, which is pretty far off from where we need to be. We're supposed to be on a 107, so we're gonna have to make an adjustment on our timing set. All right, so I spared you of a lot of the goings on. Phone's been ringing and everything's been going on. So I finally got the cam advanced and got our intake center line down to 107.75, 3/4 of a degree. I'm sticking with it. And now I'm gonna switch over to the exhaust side and check it. And when I get an exhaust center line, I can also check my lobe separation angle since they are all linked together. And then we will check, we won't check piston to valve clearance. My game plan is to put a stack of 100 thousandths feeler gauges on a valve tip and then bolt my rocker arms down. I'm going to check my notes, build notes, and make sure I have enough coil bind clearance and retainer to seal clearance before I do that. But if it will roll over freely with 100 thousandths stack of shims under the valve or on top of the valve, then I'm going to have enough piston valve clearance. So let's do the exhaust center line next. All right, so we got the exhaust side done. It came in at 109.25 exhaust center line. So if I add the intake center line and the exhaust center line together divided by 2, I get 108.5 LSA, and we should be at 109 LSA, which is again well within what I can accurately measure at this point. You're lucky that you didn't have to sit here with me, because I've done this probably 4 or 5 times each just to get a repeatable number. It's a lot more difficult to do it with the heads and the intake on, but got it done. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to Loctite these fasteners on the adjustable timing set and torque those, and going to check or attempt to check our piston and valve clearance. All right, for my own OCD purposes, got my torque wrench set at 18. I've already went one time around. I'm gonna verify on camera. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So those are torqued, and let's see if my plan on the rocker arm shim scenario will work out. All right, so this is why you take good notes when you put a motor together. I usually convert them to a computer document so they don't look like this, but I did take good notes. So we have open at open pressure 675 pounds at an inch 090. We coil bind at 950. So that would be 140 thousandths coil bind clearance at lift, and I've got 720 retainer to seal clearance, which means that I'm not going to make it on piston valve clearance. Checking it this way, I'm going to hit the retainer against the seal and won't be able to go any further. So I'm going to have to rethink this, and it may be that this cam has a little bit less lift. It's got less overlap than the other one. I had plenty of clearance on the other cam. Let's see, on a 107 intake center line with the other one, with the real spring and lash, I was at 164 thousandths clearance intake valve clearance and 140 thousandths exhaust valve clearance. So I may just let it roll and just go ahead and slap it back together. So I'm gonna ponder that for a minute, and then I'll get back to you. All right, I know it's just been a second, but I've taken the past 10 minutes or so and thought through this. I'm at less lift and less overlap than the last cam, and I had plenty of valve clearance last time. So I'm going to put the push rods and the rocker arms on it, and I'm going to roll it over without the spark plugs in it. And if everything feels good, this thing's going back together. And I'm I'll get another dyno test scheduled. And that will be the absolute, I promise, last time that I dyno it before taking it down. But I just wanted to see what this other cam would do, and if I start doing other things, then I'm going to lose my, you know, my control. Instead of changing, you know, just one variable at a time, we would have been changing 3 or 4. So I don't like doing that. But give me I guess in your time it's going to be like 2 seconds, but give me a little bit and I'll get it back together, and we'll finish up the video. All right, I'm back to where I started at 8 o'clock this morning. So it took me 5 hours to do a cam swap, including degreeing and answering the phone and everything else. It's probably not a world record, but I didn't do too shabby. I'm gonna get a couple of 4-hole spacers, since that was the money maker on the dyno, and I think I'm gonna snag another set of spark plugs, and we'll be ready to dyno here, probably not next week, but maybe the week after that. So new cam, hopefully we'll make some power. All right, guys, have a good weekend. Happy 4th of July. Hit that subscribe button. Talk to you later.